Action. Richard, start us off today.
Oh man, well, welcome back to the Nervous Men in a $4 Room. There you go. Back at it. It's been a while.
It's been like 3 weeks, huh?
Something like that.
What is new with yous guys? Let's cover our bases. Catch up.
Jones has a bigger one than me, so I'll start off so that it's not so that we lead into his. I got a new.
I thought you were making a joke about that.
No, god damn it!
All right.
I saw Jones's face and then I was like, it's all over.
Go on.
Yeah, your story.
Yeah, Jones has had some bigger changes recently, so his story will be more substantial. I just got my washing machine and dryer and finally got my gas dryer hooked up and stuff, so now I'm fully operational. So I'm finally taking care of regular crap like that, but I just inked a bunch of new pieces yesterday. But same old stuff, just working on art, hanging out. That's about it.
Jonesy, what's your big ass hung ass news?
Oh god damn. We're just gonna have to cut that whole intro. That whole thing's going.
The big news is that I moved. I'm in a new house. So I've just been taking care of building, assembling furniture, all that fun stuff. A lot of recycling, a lot of sweaty nights.
Why? Is the AC not working?
No, it's just I have to, for this new house, there's an alleyway for trash, right? So I have to walk all the way out to the trash cans. So I'm carrying.
How did the moving stuff work with all the Rona in Phoenix?
Fine. I mean, it's just people they just wear masks. The movers.
Nothing crazy,
No.
not like gloved up. Darth
Hazard
Vader
suits.
masks.
No, it's nothing like that. I mean, I don't know if that's up to the moving companies to say, it's up to you to sanitize things or what. But both times we moved, because we had to go to a storage unit first and then stay somewhere else for a week, and then from the storage unit to the new house. Both movers were just, they're just wearing masks, but that was about it. Yeah, there was no crazy precautions, I guess, but we still took ours. So.
Do you know?
Yeah.
If I have no news, so we'll just skip my news. Do you know? Has anyone actually been? I think I was asking Richard this yesterday. Do you know if anyone's really been arrested in Phoenix yet? Like some jabroni that's just like, I ain't wearing no goddamn mask.
Yeah, not for that. No, I don't think so.
Is that legit, or was that just a Facebook rumor type thing?
Well, there's fines set up by the city of Phoenix as well as any other of the neighboring cities. Each of them have their own punishments, but I don't know exactly when that's been enforced. I'm not saying that's not being enforced. I just don't know when. I haven't heard any stories. I don't know what the situation really is there.
I'm curious to see who that would be. Like what the dude that does get arrested would look like.
My guess.
I have seen. Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, my guess would be someone that's just making a big fuss in public, public disturbance, anything related to that, where it's actually some sort of other crime related to that, because it started off as that. But that's all I was going to say.
I have noticed way more people wearing masks now compared to last month. Last month, I would go grocery shopping and there would be, half the people in the store not wearing masks, and then I don't know, you could go anywhere and that's kind of what I was seeing. But now I just went to get groceries like a week and a half ago, and everyone was in a mask. Families with 3 kids, the 3 kids are wearing a mask. So I've definitely noticed that way more people are adhering to it now.
Do kids wear masks in the U.S.?
Yep.
Yeah.
What? I thought it was kind of weird here. You'll sometimes see kids in masks, but the majority of kids I see don't. It's like the parents wearing masks, older kids wearing masks, but like children are just free and clear, I guess.
No, it's required above a certain age here.
Damn.
Yeah, typically above 6, that's when it's required. Anyone under that is like exempt, or if you have a medical condition, things like that. But yeah, there's a lot more people wearing masks for sure.
Damn. Did it cure the issue or solve the problem? Is
Well, I mean,
Arizona still number one?
It's either us or Florida.
Oh, Florida?
Nah, dude, we've been far away from number one for a long time. Like Florida, Atlanta, Jersey was ahead of us for a little bit, like right after. There was like 1 week where we were number one, and then people just kept talking about it for 3 weeks after that. But we were it was pretty short lived. There are a bunch of others that were ahead of us after that.
I thought the whole point of the mask thing was because we were number one for so long.
Yeah, Arizona was, but it wasn't that long. People just continued to talk about it for weeks. And I think it was just because people in Arizona saw Arizona on the news and just keep talking about, oh, we're on the news, we're the worst ones, and it just is perpetuated. But I think that the numbers have shifted significantly since then.
Jones, what do those numbers say?
So this is just Worldometers. I'm pulled this up. Looks like I'm just looking at new cases, right? So new cases yesterday total. Arizona had 3,500. Florida had 9,400. For a while, I don't exactly remember all
When
the
the
different
mask thing
case
started,
counts.
wasn't it at like 1,500 and people were going nuts?
Oh yeah. That was the
Now what's it at?
total. Let's see. We have 100. Shoot. Where'd it go? 148,000. So that's kind of one of the big criticisms here. It's like, oh, we closed, we shut down at like a couple thousand, and now we're just reopening at 148,000. But another thing to say here is, who knows how many of these have recovered? But the thing is that for a while we were just it was the daily amount that was increasing to a very, I don't know, very big number. I hate to sound like Trump that way, to say like it's like a number we've never seen before.
Number.
It's a number that no one can even pronounce. No, because I know like Florida is getting like, what is it, like almost 10,000? Yeah, almost 10,000 cases daily. We were getting close to that. Well,
What is
maybe
it
not.
now?
I don't know.
After the mask stuff.
Well, as of yesterday, it was 3,500. I can look up more.
3,500. So it dropped down from 10,000 to 3,500?
Daily, yes. But I don't think we got to the point where it was 10,000.
Kind of curious. I was just wondering, because we were talking about that before, where we were wondering if the masks would actually do anything, or if it was more about people not going places.
Right.
Sorry, I gotta fix something here. All right. Okay. What happened? We were talking about what we've been up to, and then it spiraled into COVID nonsense.
Hey, I'm curious. I want to know what's going on back home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if you look at this right here, new reported cases by day in Arizona. So on June 30th, highest we had daily was 4,700. And yeah, it started sort of slightly dropping, but again, some of these might be due to higher testing. Also, with the testing, there's some that are delayed, so some cases may be retroactively put back for a certain date. It all depends. It all depends on. But looking at this trend, it's barely starting to go down, but it's going down. So hopefully we continue to see more of that.
Downward trends. That's what we got to go for. In all aspects of life. Downwards. Never upwards.
Yep.
I was wondering if how crazy people would, especially like the folks that are like, carrying guns, not to wear masks and stuff. Like if it had stayed the same, if they would have just gone like even crazier,
Oh, totally.
like Justified, they would have turned into what's that dude from No Country for Old Men? The crazy guy, the murderer, the assassin.
Oh, the Javier Bardem character.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. If the rule you followed brought you to this, of what use was the rule? And then blam, with this weird silent shotgun.
There you go.
But Richard actually had a topic he wanted to talk about. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Joby. The senses, the more than 5 senses.
I did.
Which this was another one similar to the first conspiracy that you brought up, to where I tried to Google it and research stuff, and I'm kind of confused about what the conspiracy is, because everything I looked up was like, oh yeah, there's more than 5 senses. They were saying like there's a sense of like spatial awareness, and
I wouldn't call that a sense. I mean,
dude, the guy that said it though, he had the DR in front of his name.
well, I guess you could call that a sense, but is that really a sense, like being able to assess your surroundings? I think that's more so like a mental observation than an inherent sense like sight or taste or hearing, or
Wouldn't it be similar to the sense of like feeling that you're being watched?
That's what I think
So that's
Jones
what I was
or
talking
Richard was
about.
talking about.
Right.
That was my
right.
initial example.
Right, but in the sense of, in the terms of spatial awareness, feeling when you're near something, right? Like, I don't feel like I have an extra sixth sense, but I feel like I have pretty good spatial awareness. I feel like if I've backed up to something and I'm about to tip it over, I'm not going to back up anymore because I know there's something behind me, and it's just something that I feel is there. But I don't know. I don't think that would count as a sixth sense for me, but I'm curious to see to hear what more you have heard.
Well, what I was looking at, they use the example of like if you close your eyes and like you put your finger in front of your forehead, like you can't see that your finger is in front of your forehead, you could just feel it. And that is a type of sense. It's not like I said, oh, I'm going to put my finger in front of my forehead and then I'm like up here. Like I know that my forehead is here even though I can't see it.
I don't know. I don't buy that, because I could go into a pitch black room that I have never been in. It's not my bedroom or something like that where I know where things are in it. I go into a pitch black room and I would have absolutely no sense or feeling whatsoever of whether there's an object in front of me or to the left of me, to the right. If I was in a pitch black room and I just walked in, I would be completely lost. I would have no feeling of whether something was 2 feet to my right or if something was 6 feet in front of me. I would have no sense of spatial measure or spatial awareness, so I don't really buy into that one.
Yeah, I think they were talking more about senses,
Richard.
like personal senses, like things that we individually feel, not like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just like a gut instinct or something like that. Like
Yeah.
walking into a dark room and being able to, I don't know, assume that there's stuff in certain places. I don't think they were talking about that.
Well, then it wouldn't be a sense, because a sense isn't something that you just like have every once in a while. It would have to be a recurring element. It would have to be something that is consistent and regularly used by your body or your brain, or it's a part of your mental state. It's something it has ongoing use, like taste or sound or sight, something like that, wouldn't it?
So what were other examples you found, Richard?
Other examples of it would be some of the examples that I read were what you said a minute ago, like how some people just know or generally have a feeling of when they're being watched. How do people know that they're being, and like, do sometimes people just can tell? Or even the concept of deja vu, or sometimes how you know what someone is going to say, like before they even say it. Things like that. These weird occurrences that can't really be explained or accounted for. And basically how it could be some sort of a metaphysical sense. It's not something that's based in, I don't know. It doesn't always have to be a physical state, obviously, because sound is not physical, except when you get to like a microscopic level, then you see that it actually is moving things. But I guess that's a different
What?
conversation.
Is it? Dude,
Yeah.
sound is an actual like thing?
Yeah, have you ever seen studies of like the effects that sound has on like water or sand or how it creates symmetrical patterns and things like that?
No.
Oh, it's disturbing. It's crazy how like certain frequencies, certain hertz, they create um almost like almost like fractal patterns or weird symmetrical designs and things.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
you can see
strange.
that. You can see that test happen a lot with it's like these basically like a plate or a table that vibrates at a certain frequency, and you'll
Can you
almost
find
see
a
it
video
do.
of it without sound?
I can mute it.
I'd never heard. I didn't. You blew my mind, Rich. I didn't know sound was a thing. I thought it was like, I don't know, just nothing really, I guess.
Well, and to keep going with this, there are senses that animals have that we don't have for sure.
Hmm.
So that there are other physical characteristics or other things that we know animals have that humans definitely don't have.
Hmm.
Just in the idea of senses, yes, we're specifically talking about humans possibly having other senses aside from the regular five that we know.
Yeah. So
What?
so this video here, it's vibrating at 1033 hertz, and it makes that pattern. So
What? So like certain, that's just like a frequency of sound that will always make that shape?
I think I don't know
Yeah.
if Richard would be able to speak more to that,
What?
but I just know I've seen these videos, so that's why I pulled that up.
Dude, that's insane. I've never seen that before. It looks like
Yeah.
like a design, like a deliberate design of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that stuff's crazy. We'll go into that a different time, but yeah. Would the senses that you're talking about be kind of like, this is like a maybe a little kid version of it, but like where people say, "Oh, my ears are ringing. Someone must be talking about me," or something like that. Or is that too far out?
That one might be too far out. I think that's actually just, I think ringing of the ears comes from something else. It could be like some sort of, I have no idea. It could be like comparable to what a muscle spasm is somewhere else in your body, you know, except it's something happening in your eardrum.
Well, I think a better example that I just thought of, I think it's more what you're talking about, is like that thing where people can feel like when a family member passes away in some distant place.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard about that,
Hmm.
which,
Well, animals supposedly have that. Like dogs know when people are sick, and that
hmm,
could be as simple as smell. They could actually smell when something is wrong in your body, but
hmm.
dogs knowing when people are going to die. Dogs also have magnetoreception, which is like being able to see magnetic fields,
What? What would that
which they've
even
also
be?
found. I have no idea. They've also found that some primates have it. Joe Rogan talked about it once on his show. It's pretty cool.
What would be the purpose? Do they know the purpose of being able to see that?
I don't know.
Wouldn't it just be something sort of like, I don't know, depending on how that animal's eye developed, how if there's, because like the human eye only has a certain spectrum that's visible, right? But then there's like X-ray and ultraviolet, things like that. It might just be another
Yeah.
one of those, something that's on that spectrum of
Hmm.
what could be visible and what's not,
Yeah,
depending
or
on how
even,
an
you know, how
animal's eye.
certain snakes. Yeah, how certain snakes have like almost like heat vision, things like that.
For it to be a sense, does it always have to be, I don't know if it, like I want to say correct, Like, because sometimes if you feel like, oh, I could tell what this person is about to say, I feel like the majority of the time we don't know what people are going to say, even if we feel like we do, and then it causes some sort of like misunderstanding, even with
I think
writing.
that's different. I think when you actually know what someone was about to say and then they say it and you're like, oh wow, that was strange. Because there certainly are other cases where it could just be something that you infer and it's just an intuition, and then it turns out that you're coincidentally correct. It's more so happenstance than an actual some sort of a sensory thing. But I just thought it was an interesting idea.
I don't know if I've ever experienced anything like that. Have you, Jones?
Not personally, but that's sort of the conversation from, previous episode where we were talking about dreams, just how people sort of have a feeling that something happens, or it ties into that. So and they've accurately felt the same thing, like two people physically distant from each other can feel someone passing or something like that. So I've heard about that. It's fascinated me. Never happened to me though.
What about, have you heard about I don't think it's a sense, but the out of body, because it kind of reminded me experience, like when people are like, oh, I was on the operating table and then I floated up out of my body and saw the hospital and stuff like that. You ever looked into those strange stories?
No, but sometimes it seems believable.
Jones, you looked excited when I mentioned it. Have you looked into it?
Yeah, I've looked into it a little bit, just kind of what causes it, how I don't know, trying to get different people's stories on it. It has interested me, especially with out of body experiences and like getting into weird stuff like astral projection and things like that. Again, things I have never experienced. I have zero evidence that it's even real for me.
Have you tried DMT?
Right.
Do you do yoga?
It kind of goes into that of like how certain psychedelics can actually like take you across a certain plane or dimension. It seems like there's a couple of experiences or traits or characteristics that are shared among other people, where they see a certain type of being or some sort of creature that other people have experienced during a psychedelic trip, but also just not getting too crazy into the hippy dippy stuff, just more of like out of body experiences. That's another thing I'm fascinated by. I've always wanted to see myself from an outside perspective, if I could just see like a little ghost version of myself floating away. But hasn't happened to me.
The only story I ever hear about that is like the one where it is like a hospital type thing, which I guess it could kind of be drug related because they get put under, but they're always like, oh, I saw this thing on the roof. And then they come to find that thing was on the roof and they'd never been to the roof before. Something like that.
Yeah.
But
that's a bit strange. Because I was about to say that it could just as easily be a dream that they have when they are unconscious or otherwise on anesthesia, something like that. But that last part kind of trips that then if there is some hard evidence or some unexplainable piece where they saw something that they've never actually seen in person before. That's a bit tricky. That's more difficult to explain.
Because in those stories, they're often like, oh, I was floating above the operating table and I heard the doctors talking about this stuff, but I wasn't awake. I was under at that time. And for that stuff, I feel like maybe it's just, maybe your brain isn't completely shut off and you could still hear what's going on.
You're still hearing it. Exactly.
Now, if you can hear a conversation in another room happening, that would be impressive.
That's when it gets kind of weird. Like with the stuff on the roof of the hospital that they describe and then comes back again. Nah, damn it. It's a completely different topic. But have you seen they restarted the Unsolved Mysteries on the Netflix?
I heard about it. I haven't watched any.
You don't like Unsolved Mysteries? It's
I
a
don't
good
have
one.
Netflix anymore. I just haven't paid for it in a while.
There's a good one on aliens that you should you should watch if you get
Oh,
the
okay.
chance.
All
Have you
right.
seen it, Jones?
No, but my ears are perking right now.
Dude, it's a weird one cuz it's like it's an alien sighting, but it's a town-wide alien sighting of people that have never met before that all have like the same experience of when they were kids. They got taken up into some, they describe it as like a metal tower looking thing with big bright lights. But the kids remember like being in the room with kids that were taken on the other side of town that they don't know. And they just like vaguely remember being in some room inside of this ship and there's just kids there with them. And it's just it's weird if you get a chance to watch it, but it's kind of similar to the fighter pilot one where it's just, you know, people that have no real reason to lie. They're just rando folk.
Mm-hmm.
But
Unless they're being paid by this documentary crew.
that too. Yeah. You never know. But
I was
yeah, if you
just
like,
about to bring up that what was his name? Graham Hancock conversation where he mentions the possibility of telekinetic abilities possibly existing in
yeah,
previous
did you like that one?
civilizations.
I thought it was pretty
That
cool,
was
huh?
that was strange. Yeah, once I don't know how much I can get behind that, but it is an odd theory because there's really no explanation for how some of these structures on the interior of the pyramids could have possibly been done. How in the world did they even move these pieces of stone? How would they have mounted them? How would they have lifted them or even gotten them up to just these different heights?
It sounds like I want to believe that that's possible, but it also just sounds like so cartoony or movie-ish to where it's
Yeah.
like hard to actually imagine that being a real thing. But at the same time, how the hell is it possible otherwise?
Like someone just thinking of like moving a stone.
Yeah, like Magneto, but with stone.
Yeah, like Professor X.
Because what was he saying? He was saying that it was like some society that instead of going in the direction where, like us, where we make machines to create stuff and we're not really so much involved with our senses and what our minds can do, like this past group of folks went in the directions of like looking more inward in themselves and like doing different, I don't know, natural drugs or whatever to sort of just create these abilities. Something like what
In
Richard
terms
was
of,
saying,
yeah.
like the ability to feel what someone's going to say before they say it, deja vu type stuff.
Or so expanding mental capacity instead of relying on technology or mechanics.
Yeah.
But what Jones was saying about people who like take DMT or anything like that and then believe that they go to another dimension, like I think that stuff is so stupid. You've never gone to another dimension or some other plane of existence. Like you just tripped out and you just had like acid dreams. That's it. Like you're just seeing visuals like when you go to sleep and you have dreams. You're not going to another place.
But why would it? Because like with those things, why would it all? Because the thing that if it was random little trips where they see whatever the hell they want, I think it gets interesting when it's like people seeing the same thing.
Well, they're all taking the same drug. They're all having the same chemical reactions in their brain. So why wouldn't it have the same visuals?
Maybe. I don't know. That just seems like a bit of a stretch to say that just because it's the same drug, you're going to see the same exact thing. Because that doesn't seem to be true for other drugs.
We have a hardwired concept of what God or a divinity is. We have all of these basically concepts that are built into our culture, and everybody knows what these things are. You know what this thing is. You know what it supposedly looks like. You see images of this and that. So it makes sense that everyone would have the same thing, or when their mind goes to these places, they see similar things or have similar experiences, because that's just the tendency. That's where a human mind wanders off to, because we all have these constructs and these ideas that have already been indoctrinated into people for thousands and thousands of years. So to me, it is easily explainable. It just doesn't make sense to me that you took this drug that had a chemical reaction in your brain and you somehow went to another dimension. That's just it's
So
absurd to me.
I was just looking something up real quick here. So Graham Hancock did talk about DMT and ayahuasca entities. He does say that there are certain entities when you do take DMT that are concerned for your well-being, whereas there's also some entities during these trips that are, well, basically don't have as good intentions as others. And this is what I've heard from other people as well. Like there's certain entities that you will come across. And I saw someone talking about this earlier today, actually, but I forgot exactly what it was. It was something like they were describing like a deer with like a hole in its face, and someone else mentioned that they saw that too. So I don't know. I get that that's like it's a common thing, right? Well, to see a deer, but to see a deer with a hole in its face, and that being the bad guy, the bad entity, and it's always bad. That's interesting to me. But I'm also just that I've never dabbled in any of this stuff, but I like seeing and reading the experiences that people have, even if it is all internalized in your mind. I still find it fascinating that someone that takes like mushrooms or acid or anything, depending on the type of trip that they have, if it's something good, they're able to suddenly better themselves. They have this revealing experience where they're suddenly kinder, more compassionate, more understanding towards others. And I think that ability alone to suddenly just unlock that from within yourself after one experience is pretty interesting. But I guess that can also happen, without.
No, I do too, and I don't doubt the validity of the feelings or the experiences that people have under the circumstances of the drug use, but I just don't believe that people are actually going to other planes of existence or dimensions. I just can't get on with that idea. But again, I don't doubt the validity of their feeling that when they say that they have kind of come to the conclusion that there is this objective truth, or that they, have a change in mental state, or it changes the way they think about certain things. Like what you said, it kind of changes their disposition, or they become kinder, or it just alters something about them. I don't doubt that, and I don't doubt that the experience was well, I guess that's enough about it. It's just that I just don't get on with the concept of it actually being a gateway to another plane.
I think
that's just far-fetched to me.
In most cases, I would agree with Richard, but in this, like the way I think about it, we were kind of talking about it yesterday, Richard, when it was just you and I talking, that doing some sort of trippy drug or whatever, going to a different dimension, seeing weird beings and stuff like that, and it not being, a coincidence or something we're programmed to do, it being legit, that sort of crazy level something is equally crazy with like just everything else that we experience, like being able to talk to someone through the internet, living in a world where we can just like turn on light and then suddenly there's light, TV's working however the hell they work. Like they kind of seem to me as like the equally sort of craziness that I don't know how the hell any of this is possible.
That's true, because yeah, when you break it down that much, I guess so, because then you think about like cameras.
Yeah.
How the hell do cameras make no sense? Like it's literally like a chemical reaction and a flash of light. And it somehow like freeze frames a piece of existence. And you
That seems
can,
like insane.
yeah,
Everything
it's just
about
like
our lives is
chemicals
insane.
and powder and light, and it somehow grabs a piece of reality and can be imprinted onto a plate, a piece of glass. You can print it onto paper. Now we can recreate that process digitally with digital cameras. So yeah, I guess when you break it down that much, it maybe it isn't that far fetched that a flower or a plant or some sort of chemical can do something like that or take you to uh another plane, another
Yeah.
dimension, or some other form of like a temporal existence. That's
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
because
me,
that's
the
scary.
fact that we are here in existence is already like beyond crazy. So it's like
Yeah.
that doesn't seem so far fetched to me as being a
yeah,
Damn,
reality.
you just wrinkled my brain, dude.
yeah. So essentially, those plants or whatever could just be seen as another tool or the
Yeah.
technology to get to a certain point, right?
That's it. We're done
Dude,
for
that's
tonight.
true, huh? That could
Right.
be a tool. It could be just like a camera or
Yeah, that's what
anything
I'm
else.
saying. Now that you said that about technology, like if it doesn't seem that far fetched, like just thinking about the internet and cameras and everything, like you just have pieces of wood, string, and wire put together, and I'm able to talk to you from across the planet,
Dude, that's
and
true.
it's somehow relaying images. Like I'm talking to you right now, you know.
Yeah,
Then that would kind
I've
of.
always
Or go ahead, John.
I was gonna say I've always been interested in like different planes of existence or different realities, and I I can't ever prove that they're real or not. But if we already have a construct of something like, for the afterlife or that, wouldn't that be some other plane of existence? Wouldn't that be
Hmm.
somewhere else that we can't access right now physically in our current state?
Yeah, yes, and now that kind of just kickstarted something else in my mind. It could potentially be the reason why some indigenous people did not like photos.
Hmm.
You know,
That's
that
true.
they believed it was like stealing your soul.
Hmm.
And what if there was some truth to that?
Dude, it would make sense with the way Instagram's going. Everyone's soulless in this goddamn world. Ain't got no morals. No, but yeah.
But but freeze framing, this point in time, having this piece of existence, I don't know, this just taken, kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be wild. I was thinking about, like, with freezing existence. Recently, I've been thinking about, like, if what I see is what you guys see. Like, I was looking at myself in the mirror the other day, and I just kind of started thinking, like, is the E-Dog that I see in this mirror what Jones sees me as? Like, I don't, just that sort of thing. Like, does the way my hair looks to me, is that what Jones sees? Is it this color? Does Richard see my big ass nose the way it is? Like, just sort of like, I don't know. I'm curious what other people see, if we're all seeing this the same
Well,
way.
I think to some degree we are, yes, and that's why a painter or an artist can do a caricature or a
Hmm.
portrait of you and it will look like you because for the most part we are seeing the same thing. We
Hmm.
are seeing the same shapes and contours and lines and things that put together you, right?
Hmm.
But there is some variation. Like I'm partially colorblind. I have a red-green deficiency. So
Hmm.
I see colors differently than you see them, without a doubt. I can probably look at one of these like Star Wars movie posters up in here or something, and I see the picture as having cooler colors. Like maybe I look at the poster and I see, that's kind of a more blue green tint, isn't it? And someone could look at that and be like, no, dude, like the red in that picture is way brighter than any of the blue. Like that's not. So I know for a fact that my eyes receive color different than other people. So there could very well be other things that people kind of pick up or see differently. I know color is a big one right off the bat.
Yeah, I guess it could be something like that. I guess in my mind, I would still wonder, like with the painting, if we're seeing the painting the same way, I guess. I don't know how to explain that, though.
It ties into the idea of solipsism again. You know what you look like, right? You were saying, does Jones see me the same way that I see myself, the way that I know I look? Does he see that also? Well, if he's just an extension of yourself, if he were an artist and did a caricature and did a drawing, and you're like, oh, that does look like, well, he was able to do the drawing that looks like you because he is you. He's just like an extension of you. If we were getting back into that solipsist format, right? Because everyone else around you and everything else in the world is just an extension of yourself, and so that's why it relays the exact same image. That's why the painting does look like you, because that person really is you, so that's why they see the same thing that you see when you look in the mirror at yourself.
I don't like that. That still bothers me whenever you tell me about it. That stuff is so
sounded like
weird.
you're about to cry this time. You're like, I'm not having it.
I'm me. Jones is Jones. Richard's Richard.
No, I don't subscribe to that thought either. It's just an interesting concept.
Damn. Yeah, we were talking about yesterday, Jones. We kind of got into this stuff with just the origin of things, of just sort of where we are, just how crazy life is. So it kind of led to to this weird topic of senses, but what about reality? Good people.
Oh, God.
What about reality?
Yeah, what about it?
I actually still want to know
that-
what the moon thing is, because it's related to this thing.
Well, we can get to that, but I was about to say just in the case of reality, because then we started talking about simulation theory. We started talking about Mouse in the Matrix, or he was talking about like chicken, and then like the machines creating the tastes of food that people have while they're in the Matrix, and talking about how the simulation could be incorrect, and that's not really what chicken tastes like, and that's that's why it almost lots of other foods taste like chicken, or people say, oh, that tastes like chicken, because like the machines use that flavor for everything, but they themselves don't even know what chicken really tastes like, so they fabricated these sensations and simulations that people experience within the Matrix. I love that.
With chicken, Jones, we were talking about yesterday, how do you think people get to knowing what we can eat and what we can't eat? Like I was telling Richard, like the pufferfish. Like at what point in history do people realize, oh, if I cut this little part out, I could eat it without dying? Is it just like a million people that ate a certain part of it, and then at one point someone didn't eat that one little gland, and they're like, oh, you lived. Let's cut out this one part.
Yeah, what's up with that? So some fool was like eating a bunch of shrimp without taking the ass off of it, Somebody was making a bunch of mistakes for us to get where we are now. We started talking about like mushrooms, like who's the son of a bitch who decided to eat mushrooms and just be like, dude, these things will trip you out. These things on the ground, you should pull them up and eat them. Who was messing around and just chomping on stuff,
These ones don't do much, but they can go on pizza, I guess.
Or what was the other thing? We were talking about beans, like coffee beans, chocolate, vanilla, like all of these different things. Like, yeah, you can grind this one up. You can do this. You can do that. It's like, who figured this out? Who was messing around with beans?
Because we were thinking like it's trial and error, but like at least me and Richard were saying that it would have to be an insane amount of people dying through trial and error or just doing weird stuff that just doesn't seem, I don't know, logical or.
Well, we've been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of people that have died, so it could be trial and error. But I'm sure there's a very well thought out, well structured lecture out there on the history of food and how discoveries of food happen. Because same thing with like milk from a cow. How the hell do you get
Mhm.
to milk a freaking cow and then think
Let
this
me
is
pull
drink
on
that.
that.
yeah, let me pull on that.
Well,
Hey,
I can
look at
think of
that. It's
one way we made that connection, but
okay. But
Hey, what's this podcast rating?
But even then, something with like cheese, how do you take that from a milk or how do you take that from a cow and then just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
let it sit there and do its thing or process it a certain
Yeah,
way and
that's
it's like
that's interesting too. The whole fermentation process, how that was discovered. That's well, I guess it wasn't really discovered. That kind of leads to another point then. It was out of necessity. It's not like it wasn't just trial and error and people fooling around. Maybe it was completely out of necessity. We
Mm.
cannot store food. People don't have ice boxes, people don't have refrigeration, so things have to sit.
Mm.
These processes were kind of just created out of nature and out of necessity. And in terms of maybe trying dangerous foods, maybe there weren't a bunch of fools like eating weird stuff and dying and other people finding out you can't eat this or that. I think before there was widespread use of technology, agriculture functioned differently. People weren't sitting around using tools and doing all of these other things. There was probably a greater observation for nature and animals. You would see birds crack open those nuts. We could probably
Mm.
eat those nuts, right? These animals, these deer eat these kind of berries and this and that. So I think that was a larger part of it too. I
Mm.
think early civilizations and early man probably had a greater just observation for what animals were eating and what animals had in their diet, and we were able to pick up on that and then incorporate it into our own foods and food groups and the way we process things.
There was one that really made me kind of trip me out because it was some sort of root like in Southeast Asia or something. But there's like a very specific pathway. You got to boil it at a certain temperature. You got to I guess harvest it at a certain time. Peel off the right part of it, otherwise it turns into like arsenic or something like that and kills you.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, for that sort of stuff, was it just a line of jabrones? Some dude boiled it at 80 degrees, another or 100 degrees, another dude at 120. He dropped dead. Let's up the heat. We'll do it again. Like that stuff just seems like crazy.
Yeah.
Which that's how we got in with the food. That's how we got into the Matrix because I was like, it is because that's the way it's programmed to be. Zero
Yeah,
one
then that
equals
led
zero
into
one.
the simulation theory, yeah.
and we're just cheating the system by cooking certain parts of the pufferfish.
Yeah. Would you try dangerous foods like that? Talking about
No.
foods. No? Not for the
No.
experience, the rush?
No,
Mm.
it's not
Damn.
worth it. Even if it's no.
Nah, man, I'll stick with the ravioli.
Damn. I thought about
Yeah.
trying pufferfish. Because they tell me, they're like, oh, only 1-2 people die a year from pufferfish. Well, you could be one
that
of those 2 people.
Yeah,
But
I bet you. I bet you the people that have died from eating pufferfish have also thought, well, it can't be me. You know?
But there was an old dude that I was talking to, and he's the one that's like, oh, you should try it, you should try it. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of worried that I'll get a bad one. And he's like, oh, you might, but you shouldn't worry anyway, because it's a really quick death from the pufferfish poison. So I was like,
Oh
all right
my
then.
God.
He's like, it'll be quick. You'll eat the pufferfish and then you'll be gone. He was a wise old man. Old man number 619.
Rey Mysterio?
Is that Rey Mysterio's number?
Yeah.
What? I just chose random numbers. Dude, it's part of the simulation. Why did I choose those numbers?
It's all coming together.
But anyway, I still, to take away your guys' hype for this topic, I still want to know the dark side of the moon, because I didn't know that was
God, the dark side of the moon. Well, there's not a whole lot to that one there. Some people just think that there could be some sort of colony. Some people think there's like a colony on the other side of the moon. And that could be a million things. Some people think it could be from Earth. Some people think it could be extraterrestrials observing us. There's a million theories about that, but just the idea that the dark side of the moon has never been explored, I guess.
Do we see the? Do we always see the same side of the moon? I'm trying
We
to remember
always
if
see
that's
the-
Yes.
Yeah.
correct.
We
Yeah.
always see the same side.
The moons have an orbit, but they do not rotate themselves.
Oh.
Yeah, so you're always seeing the same side, basically. Like, if this is the point, it's always seeing the same side.
Yeah, I
Like that.
remember hearing that. I
It's
just wasn't
not-
sure if I was
It's not
making
going
that
like
up
that. Yeah.
in my own head. But to what end? What would be? Is it like something that the government is hiding from us, or just, we haven't seen it, so there's something there?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Well-
Is this an alien colony? Is this a human colony? Is this what is it speculating?
No, there's different theories about what the colony could be. It's just strange because like it's untouched by the sun. We don't know what could be on that other side. I just like it. It's fun.
That's kind of
Yeah,
like
that's-
your Antarctica thing, right? Was it
Yeah,
Antarctica?
the underground civilization. I think that ties into Smedley Butler a little bit though.
Does it?
Yeah.
How? There's so much
I
of
heard-
that Butler guy that.
Dude, I heard he had something to do with an expedition. This is something I got to read up on before we go deep.
Yeah, Richard told me
into
about
the-
that yesterday. I had no idea there was a that there was a conspiracy that there's people or some hidden group in Antarctica.
Wasn't that the premise?
underground.
Wasn't that the premise of like Alien versus Predator? They find that pyramid that's in the underground in Antarctica, and that's like a giant. It's almost like a Mayan pyramid.
Was
Really?
that
That's where-
Antarctica?
I don't know. I don't watch those movies. They suck ass. I don't watch that stuff.
I think I've
That's
seen that
in it.
movie, but I didn't realize it was Antarctica.
Yeah, they were in Antarctica, and
Whoa.
they found this giant temple that used to be like a sacrificial place, and
To the xenomorphs or something?
well, they they set up the premise in that movie that like the ancient Mayans used to sacrifice themselves to the predators because they saw them as gods. This gets into the whole
Oh, okay.
ancient aliens, ancient civilization sort of thing.
History
But-
Channel late night.
You're right, but it was kind of like that. So, but eventually, I think the xenomorphs got in, and then they're living in there. I don't know. It was a weird thing. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but I do remember they were in the snow, or in the ice, and there were some ice caves and underground stuff. So, I guess that is a common thing for people to think about. I'd not really heard about that before either.
Yeah, Richard told me about that yesterday. What the hell was that? But did you get to see the Olmec video, Richard?
No.
Oh, damn. That's a good one.
What-
It's also related to the Hancock guy about like I'm pretty sure it's some civilization that existed before like the Ice Age that gets wiped out by like a comet or something like that. But basically they would be the people that taught like the Mayans and the Aztecs about like the calendars and the agriculture. There's some like super society that doesn't exist anymore, and they have like these Olmec heads that like they're these, I think people say they look like sort of African in their looks, and they kind of exist, those heads, around the world to where places where like the normal history would say that's not possible. They weren't there in that area at that time. Yeah, those things.
Wow.
So these are supposed to be really big things?
Yeah, they're
Or-
supposedly giant stone heads. Also goes into that thing like with the Egyptians where it's like, how were these big giant things made? And then why do they exist I don't know, like for example, in the Middle East and then also in South America, the same exact head with the same helmet, the same look.
Mm.
In a time where, like, supposedly we couldn't move around the world because we were too hunter-gatherer type stuff. Yeah, those things. What does it say about them?
Dang.
About the Olmec heads?
Yeah, or just the Olmecs, because there is something trippy about them.
So they were the earliest known major Mesoamerican civilization. They occupied the tropical lowlands of the modern-day Mexican states of Veracruz and Tabasco. It's been speculated that the Olmecs derived in part from the neighboring Mocaya and Mixtezoque cultures. Let's see what else we can find.
Dude, you
Turns
should
out
have
they
watched
carved the crystal skulls.
it. Dude, I want to look more into like the Egyptian stuff. That looks really cool. All this sort of old, like before written history stuff seems
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Well, that gets into like that. That definitely ties into a lot with religion history as well, right? How there's a lot of commonalities between different religions, even like ancient Egyptian and Christianity, how they have
Hmm.
same type of things that happen. I think it was like oh geez, there's an Egyptian god that's very much compared to like Jesus Christ as far as things that have happened, you know, miracle worker that died, resurrected 3 days later, things like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the standard
I
like
think
story of creation and stuff like that seems to
yeah,
extend around
there's
the
a
world.
lot of things that just happen and come up in a lot of folklore and stories that just are very strange coincidences because they're very far apart, and it would have been in a time where they probably wouldn't have been communicating with each other. So it's interesting stuff.
But we were talking about that a little bit yesterday.
Yeah, about how it could have come from like a singular source, or
Yeah.
how it's all really the same belief, but because there are differences in people and differences in culture, it kind of branches out into these different constructs. Then we have Buddhism, then we have Christianity, then we have all these different just like culturally founded versions of that respective religion, but they all kind of come from a singular belief or source.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
Egypt is just full of awesome stuff.
How old is Egypt? Like, because there's like ancient Egypt,
Dude,
right? Which is like
The
the
pyramids
oldest.
the pyramids are like 5,000 years old.
God damn.
Yeah.
That seems weird to me. Like, if 5,000 years ago they were building these giant things, like, I don't know. How do I explain that? You would think we'd be, like, way more advanced here and now, I guess. Like,
Well,
doesn't it seem weird that they were able to do that and then suddenly things seem to, like, sort of drop off and we live more simple lives again?
isn't
then,
that
like-
why the Dark Ages may have stopped a lot of that? Like basically hardcore
But even the Dark
Christianity.
Ages in comparison to like those 5,000 years are a small segment. You can't really say like everything is stopped because of the Dark Ages. It just seems like, if it is as difficult to build the pyramids as they say it is, like you would think building pyramids, going up, and then, we kind of drop back down to where we're just sort of little colonies spread out everywhere, and up until recently, like 2,000 years ago, is when things start picking up again. When we start going crazy and building bombs and stuff and cool stuff, TVs, iPhone 11s. But I don't know. I like the Egyptian, like, myths, too. Those seem pretty...
So we have here. There's a couple. There's a couple of periods here. 55. What is it? Yeah, 5500 BC. There's a couple tribes sort of settling in the Nile. The early dynastic period started in 3050 BC. So kind of gives you an idea. So yeah, about 5,000 years ago.
That is such a
Old
long
kingdom.
time. I can't even think of that in my mind of 5,000 years ago.
That's pretty crazy. And then you think about like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, like, if you go to any given time period, like, I can't even think of any. Well, I guess like Jurassic is the name of a certain time period, right? Like there's different timestamps and different time periods where they've given names and divided these time periods. But some of that stuff is like 650 million years ago. You know, like it's so far back. It's insane that like the planet has just been building on itself throughout all of that time before man even comes into the picture and starts fooling around with architecture and creating these monuments and these things that we've had standing for 5,000 years. Like, just thinking about the lifespan of the planet as a whole is mind-blowing.
That gets me back to why I didn't think the dimensions was so crazy. Because, like, how do you get from dinosaurs to iPhones?
Yeah.
This dude, us not being here and then suddenly us here.
Oh man, this might even be a topic for a whole other episode. I don't even know if I should get into it. I was going to bring up aliens possibly being us from the future.
Aliens being serious. Us from the future?
Yes. Yeah. I'm talking like year million. I'm talking far. We're in
like time travelers?
In our new calendar system, we're only in the year 2020. But I'm talking like year million, like way yes, aliens being they used to be us, and they are actually extra dimensional, or they know how to.
So would that be like a time travel type thing?
Yeah. So if they used to be us, they traveled back in time to help their own race. To eventually get to that point, but to get to that point, they would have had to travel back in time to help.
Doesn't that make the crazy movie loop?
No, not. I don't even think it's anything like that. Like they came back to help us. It was maybe just like coming back to do something. Maybe some sort of
a history
observation.
Project?
I don't know. I have no idea what the merits of time travel would be, or what would drive someone to do that, or any race. I don't know. But just looking at people, right? So different pigments of skin. Black people have more melanin, right? People who originated closer to, I mean, that's what the difference is between light-skinned people and dark-skinned people. The human race originated closer to the equator. Yeah. So humans had to evolve with darker skin because they were they had more sun exposure, right? People from Ireland. What's up?
Jones started laughing and then I started laughing.
Oh, shut the hell up. So
I hear melanin and I think Joe Biden. That's it. I just keep thinking.
Oh, okay. So away from the, I mean, like, race is a cultural construct. We made up race and all that bullshit. People have dark skin because humans that were closer to the equator evolved that way. They evolved to have darker skin in order to protect them from the amount of sun exposure being that close to the equator. People who are further from the equator, people in, you know, like Ireland, or people in freaking colder places, have lighter skin because that's the way their skin had to develop in order to be like a solar panel and bring in more sunlight, you know. So these different pigments and things exist, but over thousands and thousands of years, isn't there some possibility of, from different people procreating, skin tones eventually going away?
Like all getting to the same one, basically averaging out.
Yes.
For that, wouldn't we all have to live in the same place though? Because after time, wouldn't your kids and their kids and their kids maybe stay around the equator and then just go back
Well,
to being dark?
that would imply that they were evolved, and humans wouldn't. I don't know if they would evolve again, because now it is a genetic trait. It is a human trait now to have those genes. If your parents were white, like, you are going to be white. It doesn't matter if, like, white people move to someplace closer to the equator, they're not going to have, like, a darker kid because they,
Well, I
it's
don't
not
mean
the
like
way it works.
instantly, like in a generation. I mean like,
Yeah, oh yeah, I know what you mean, but
yeah.
I don't think that the evolution would double itself. The evolutionary trait has already taken place. I don't think it's going to extend itself or double itself. I think that there's already groups of people with different types of pigment, and potentially over thousands and thousands of years, it could level out. So, in that regard, we could get to like some weird tan or a gray skin or something, right? Elon Musk is currently working on implants, like AI implants for people. You know about this, right?
Yeah.
To help out with people who have
medical issues.
Yeah, medical issues, things like epilepsy, seizures. Epilepsy is just irregular electrical signals in your brain. A seizure is just irregular electricity in your brain. That's all it is, right? So he's trying to develop devices that could help correct this. If you could correct these irregularities in brain function or electrical patterns in the brain so that people don't have seizures, that people don't have epilepsy, right? But he's also talking about long-term integration of people with essentially cybernetic enhancement. So taking that thousands and thousands of years, he mentioned, Elon Musk mentions the capability of people being able to communicate once they have these enhancements, not having to speak like this verbally, using your throat, not having to use your mouth and make these sounds physically with your body. Once everyone has these devices and you have this neural link with your brain, you would effectively have a form of telepathy because of this device, right?
Yeah,
and people will be able to
talk anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, well, what if we didn't have to talk anymore? What if brain function increased? What if we did eventually have this integration with technology and we just became biomechanical and the two eventually blended, and it wasn't just like we had metal pieces in our bodies? It kind of gets to the point where it all starts blending. We start to not just work with metal and plastic and these different urethanes and fibers and things that we put into our skin and muscle and brain tissue. It eventually gets to the point where we actually have like biomechanical or biological hardware. So again, taking that thousands and thousands of years down the road. So we've got increased brain activity. We have this kind of dissipation of variation of skin pigment. You're not using your mouth as much for communication because everyone can do things mentally, non-verbally. If you keep going down the road of these changes in physical state, mental state, carrying over the concepts of evolution and evolutionary progress, how this stuff would progress over time, over thousands and thousands of years, how the look of a human would eventually change to what we currently have as the description of an extraterrestrial. This smaller person, a larger head, larger eyes, a smaller mouth. They don't really communicate verbally. They have telekinetic abilities. And it just makes me think, like, but we've had this conversation before. Why do we have this universal idea of what an alien is? Why do we have this concept of a little gray man with a big head and big black eyes? Like, why has that been around for so long? Is there something real that we made contact with that lends itself to that idea, that image, that concept that's been perpetuated for decades now? Maybe it was real. And taking this idea of human evolution, this whole thing that I just purport, that I kind of laid out. So what if that is just us in the future? Millions of years from now, that is what humans become. From the evolutionary standpoint, from the technological advancement, if that's like the state we get to,
for that to be true, it would require traveling back, right?
Yes.
So that it would be some sort of time travel?
Unless that's just the way we comprehend it, because we're still this. Maybe that's not even how time works. Maybe it's not linear.
Oh,
they are able to go to, they're extra dimensional beings. They can just go to any point in space and time. To them, it's not the year 1961. They just go to this, whatever, this other thing. And to us, it's like, this is 1961 in Nevada, in the United States. And to them, it's just like, no, this is just like a certain thing that we can enter and we can just go to different things. And to us, it's like a point in time. And to them, it's, they don't view it linear. You know, it's not a, it's, I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it. I would still lean, I mean, that'd be crazy if it is.
So this whole time we're looking for this other thing out there, but it's not really us. It's not really these other beings from some other place, from some other thing. Like, it's really just us, like millions of years from now. And that's what we become.
I guess it would make sense, because assuming they, like, these things from the future would still have some sort of connection with us now, like our own sort of human instinct to look back at history would make sense for them to come back here.
We're trying to figure out how the hell they made the pyramids, right? Yeah. We have this curiosity. How the hell did they even do that? So they would probably have that with us. They would be like, what were they doing with these little boxes up to their heads? Like, what was that? You know, like, it could be the same thing. They're just trying to figure out what the hell we were doing. How did we even do this stuff?
That would be cool. I've never heard of that before.
So maybe we it's not, I don't know. It takes the whole concept of ancient alien and this galactic seeding to a whole new level where people think that we are the aliens and we came from somewhere else and were brought to Earth millions of years ago. Like, could be the exact
That would only kind of make me sad, because then it means that the rest of the universe is just empty. Because the hope that, like, aliens are from somewhere else gives you that hope that, oh, there's something else out there that we can go to.
From
but
another,
if it's just us,
like another galaxy.
Yeah, we're just sort of in the
there
same.
Could be.
Same sort of loop. What you got up there, Jones?
I was thinking, I don't know if technology would necessarily be able to go hand in hand with, like, evolutionary biology, because evolution typically, you know, in the history is with different animals and even the human race. It's been a series of mutations over time, and then, you know, with the whole animalistic idea of, like, survival of the fittest and being able to procreate and pass on, you know, generation to generation. It's all been traits that happen at random at birth that eventually start becoming the norm if that trait is beneficial. I don't know if it would be able to go hand in hand with technology. I think that eventually with technology, if humans were able to get to another place, another colony, another planet, whatever, maybe then someone, like, let's say humans, a group of humans have to move to some other place where there's lower gravity. At that point, I could see how after many, many years and generations of being there, people with like reduced bone density or longer limbs or something like that would probably be able to survive better. And they start realizing this. So, eventually you'd get to a point where humans are this taller, lankier, slimmer sort of species just because they're on this planet with like lower gravity. Or if there's some place that like, I don't know. I just think it's more of an environmental shift. It's more of an environmental pressure to change rather than something that's aided by technology. I don't know if that would be able. I'm not an expert. But I would just think that it's more, again, where people are physically located and how the environment affects them to survive and how it helps, how their traits allow them to survive. I just don't know, again, if it would be something that like over time, we're cybernetically enhanced and then that would lead to something. Could be, but I think it would be more like conditions of your environment and everything going on. I think there was, I haven't read too much into this, but someone was talking to me about this show called The Expanse on Amazon Prime, and I think they had a similar thing. It's like humans have essentially gotten into the point of like interstellar travel and things like that, and there's like some mining colonies that like, I don't know if this was the same thing, but like some mining colonies where like it's really dark down there and they've kind of evolved to be like these little creepy looking dudes with like bigger eyes or something like that. But then there's also like another subset of humans that like live on another planet that are just like very fragile because they've been living there so long with low gravity that when they get to Earth or wherever like gravity is simulated that would be very similar to what it is on Earth, they almost can't stand the pressure in their knees because their bone density just can't handle it,
So then would that possibly be us? Like what if there is like what if we're like a group from some main group of beings that came to Earth and then evolved differently? And then aliens are maybe they're not from the main group. Maybe they can be from a different group that also evolved differently. We just sort of adapted.
That's 100%. That's 100% possible because that's exactly what dogs are. Every single dog came from wolves.
Yeah.
Every single one. Like terriers, chihuahuas, every single one. Not just like the ones that look like wolves. Like huskies and stuff like that. Literally every single dog. It comes from wolves. Which is absolutely ridiculous. How the hell did that happen?
Because it would.
So, I think it's entirely possible that there could just be these different things that are actually all humans. The aliens, or, all came from the same thing. The humans of Earth are the same thing as the aliens in outer space. Like, we all came from the same source, but then have these different attributes depending on whatever the environment necessitates.
Because if we've already lost what happened, 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, it's easy that we could have lost that information as well and just forgotten about it over time.
Yeah. Oof.
Dude, that's some deep cheese right there, man.
But yeah, my point to all that is just that I think it would have to happen without technology. So
Mm,
whether that comes down to like human breeding or something like
mm.
that, where societies just get to that point or colonies get to that point, then it could happen. But
Well, why couldn't it be aided by technology if there are people with epilepsy or other medical conditions that are being aided or removed from the equation by technology? Why would that nullify the possibility of the evolution?
well, depending on a certain condition that you have, right? Like if you have something that's genetic, like if people are predisposed to colon cancer, and you as a human right now are aided with technology to get, mitigate your risk of colon cancer, or somehow you're able to zap it away, that still doesn't, I don't think that would change your genetics necessarily. So anything that you pass on to another generation would still be susceptible to that, so they would encounter the same issues each time.
Hmm.
So with genetic diseases, I don't think that would go away unless there's something that alters your DNA
Well, it would have to
to.
get to the point to bring video games into it, something like Destiny, where you create the exos, where they're not humans, they're basically humans programmed by humans, where it's all just a machine.
Right, and
We don't
and
have
that could
DNA,
happen.
it's just, data, whatever.
And that could happen, but the thing is, if we're talking just humans,
Mm.
with everything that can happen to us with genetics, just things that will happen to us because of our construct, our biological construct, I don't think you can just get rid of that um, with technology. Sure, you can help resolve an issue or get rid of one for an individual in their lifetime with technology, but that still doesn't mean that their offspring will suddenly not have that problem anymore, right?
Mm.
Like I can go bald at
I think it
40.
does. No, I think it does because in the future, like people aren't even going to be born from humans. You're not even going to come out of
They are
a
already
mother.
doing that, pretty much.
Yeah. Have you children that can be formulated and birthed from these sacs?
Yeah,
Have you
I
heard
I
of
haven't I
those?
haven't I haven't seen that. No.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's eventually going to get to the point where, I mean, they're creating synthetic meat right
Yeah.
now that people can eat.
Hmm.
That's
They're
kind of like a
creating
a
meat.
growing
So,
concern, actually, because like the whole genetic engineering thing, where it is becoming a reality, where you can choose. Like, I want my kid, to have insane muscle structure. He's not going to
yeah.
be prone to cancers, and you just basically edit.
Yeah, I'd like him to have green eyes and
Yeah.
this and that. He's not going to have um, the genetic trait of male
Yeah.
pattern baldness. He's not going to have this and that. So you're not even going to have traits that are passed on genetically because you are not going to be the product of the mother and the father. You're going to be fabricated. These two people came together, but it did not procreate.
Yeah.
You're
And that's
not
not
going
even
to
like
come
in the
out of.
future. That's like currently being practiced right
Yeah.
now.
And so it's going to be like, oh, damn, you're actually going to give birth? That's old school. Like, you're
Yeah.
actually going to have a kid? That's pretty wild. And people are going to be like, so you're not even going to know? Like, you're not going to choose the
Mm.
gender or anything? It's going to be like, nah, man, we're going to do it fashion. Like, that's going to be a thing. And
So
that's going
so
to
at,
change everything.
okay, yeah. So at that point, if you're doing that, like that kind of gets outside of the like evolution, I guess, because that's
Mm.
that's sort of the route I was taking, right? Natural progression through offspring.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if you could synthesize a life form that way, sure, anything is possible at that point. But right now, as it stands, eventually with even with all the modern technology and medicine that we have today, where we're able to just get rid of certain things, it's still something that's sort of like a crutch. We'll have to keep using it and using it on every single person,
Yeah.
I feel like it would
unless.
stagnate everything too. Like
Yeah, of
everyone's gonna
course.
want to be swole and have a
Oh
strong
yeah,
chin. It's
It's
just
Yeah.
gonna be like that that Twilight Zone episode. What's it called? Number 15 is just like you.
Oh, where they get to kind of shop around and like
mm,
Yeah,
see
for a
what body
body.
they want. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I was
Oh,
just gonna. Ooh,
sorry.
I was just gonna say something as simple as male pattern baldness, right? Like, if I go fully bald at 40, right, and I suddenly start taking Rogaine or something, whatever, hair comes back, doesn't mean my kid is gonna suddenly have a full head of hair for the rest of his life. He's
Mm-hmm.
still gonna be as susceptible to male pattern baldness as I am, or however that works, right? But yeah, or I don't know. I can make some other permanent change to my body, but genetically, that's not going to get passed down. But yeah, through natural reproduction, that can't happen.
yeah,
But if we're talking about synthesizing, yeah, that's a whole different ball game right there.
yeah. That stuff is pretty crazy. They were saying they're worried about who discovers it first, like who masters that skill first, like being able to like create the perfect human. Because
Mm-hmm.
imagine the U.S. is the first one to crack that code, and you just basically make a bunch of jabrones that are stronger than everyone, smarter than everyone, just in every way better, and then they outperform everyone else in the world, and you never really get a chance to. Same, I guess the
Well,
same would be with like the AI stuff.
you would know that that would totally get weaponized too. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just going to turn
Yeah.
into essentially like the Spartan project from Halo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where you start like raising these kid armies of like super soldiers, and yeah, that's wild.
What do you? I guess the question is, what do you think the end would be? Would it be genetically enhanced, or would it go towards something technology based? Because at least for me, I feel like even if we go to like create a perfect human, we're still mortal. We could still get blasted and die. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like humans would go more towards like a machine, something that can't really be destroyed as easily.
That's
Something
something
like that.
Elon Musk is talking about. Is basically like the movie Chappie, is consciousness being a digital transfer.
Yeah. A chappy type thing, yeah.
Yeah. Being able to inhibit a new body. The grid.
The grid. But then if we do that, there wouldn't be, unless there's like a digital form of evolution, we
A
would just be
digital
copying that
frontier.
same thing. Right?
Yeah, but I don't think there is a way to transfer consciousness digitally. That's why I think that the alien
Oh, I don't mean like
idea.
consciousness. I mean like we find a way to program what we think a human feels and thinks into a
Hmm.
machine, and that becomes the next form of humans, basically. But then it wouldn't be changing, because then, say that machine creates the next machine based on itself, it's still basically just a. Even if you have like varied copies of what a human is.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Well, it depends on how all that gets used, because even today in like the IT world, there is a very big buzzword right now is machine learning. So it's basically creating a program as simple as it can be. For example, the company I work with, there's routes involved and stuff, and at some point there was this test project that was done that was using machine learning, and with more data that it basically was fed, it was able to learn more on these routes. Like, how would these drivers be able to perform on these routes? Where would they be? Where you can predict them. You can predict where they would be depending on all the routes that they've taken. And this program would take all the data and then spit it back out and say, okay, on this day, on this time,
Hmm.
this person is going to be here on this route, and they'll finish with this much efficiency, things like that. So that's basic stuff that's happening today. So you can easily, once we get into a more advanced state of machine learning,
Create
incorporate
random
that.
personalities.
Well, just incorporate that into AI,
Hmm.
and then have a sort of pseudo consciousness that begins to learn on its own and begins to think on its own, just like a human. I mean, it may
And then
not be
fears the
perfect at first.
humans, and then turns all the rockets towards the humans, and.
It it's been a general concern for a lot of people, right? I mean, that's been a very big thing that people have talked about, like, oh, AI, but like that's kind of how that's the path you have to take. That's something that we're doing now. I mean, in a
Yeah.
very basic form, from what we know. I mean, I don't know what the military has access to right now, but they always seem to be ahead of the game. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it's pretty plausible to have something like that in the future, to just have some sort of synthetic consciousness that is able to continue to learn and continue to adjust itself to either perfect itself or become what it wants to become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like in like old Avengers comics, like when Hank Pym creates Ultron.
Exactly. You can have a bunch of Ultrons run
I mean,
around.
it's just Tony Stark in the movie, but it's the same concept with Ultron being able to, once it becomes sentient and it understands its function and then learns how to build on itself.
Yeah. Dude, I think we've scared folks enough from technology for this
Sweet.
for this evening. No one, don't be afraid of your smartphone. Well, be afraid of your smartphones, but
Oh yeah, get off TikTok.
careful, they're watching you. They're always watching you. But that's enough for this episode 6 of Nervous Men in a $4 Room podcast. We shall see you in the next one.
Take a flashlight next time you visit the moon.
Perfect.
Peace
choice.
out.